I'm Rajan Koo, I'm the CTO for DTEX. I'm really excited to talk about our new approach to risk adaptive DLP. We've known for a long time that traditional DLP is essentially broken. The notion that you can prevent data loss by inspecting the content of a file and then stopping the egress of that file, we know sounds good on paper, but in practice, it just doesn't work. DTEX DLP is different. We've been a market leader for understanding human behavior for more than a decade now, and we're taking that understanding of risk and we're dynamically adapting our DLP policies according to that risk. So you've heard from GigaOM. Another leading analyst in this space, Forrester, has been really emphasizing the convergence between data security and insider risk management as the true way to stop data breaches. Gartner's latest DLP market guide identifies the key requirements for adaptive risk-based DLP as requiring UEBA, user and entity behavior analytics, user activity monitoring, and data detection as all core capabilities of a risk-adaptive DLP platform. DTEX has all of these in spades. I'm really excited to show you a live demonstration of DTEX's risk-adaptive DLP. We start here with the control center page. We've broken this up into two segments. The first piece talks about understanding the risk profile of the organization, and the second talks about the disruptions and the deterrence measures from risk-adaptive DLP, highlighting the organization's risk profile, split amongst those 5 different behavioral categories. The first category, malicious users. Individuals that are concealing their activities or trying to hide their tracks. Negligent users. Individuals that might be just trying to get their job done, but they're introducing risk by using unapproved tools. And compromised users. Individuals that are outside the organization that have gained access to user account credentials. Data loss, we look at every egress medium, we look at what's sensitive, and then we also look at the behavioral indicators, the non-cyber indicators that speak to psychosocial elements of why a user may be risky. In the second part of the control center page, we look at the detection, deterrence, and disruption measures that have been taken by the risk-adaptive DLP. So let's dive in and look at how we investigate an individual user. DTEX uses that aggregate risk profile to stack rank the riskiest users inside the organization. This reduces false positives, and it means your analysts don't have to triage every single alert. Diving into our new risky users dashboard, we see the individual elements of that profile. We can see what was sensitive, have they been detected, disrupted, or deterred, and we provide, at the click of a button, all the information you need to triage that specific event. As we dive into a riskier user, we can look at those malicious behaviors, things like performing reconnaissance, doing data aggregation, even just research into how to bypass DLP controls becomes a really important indicator. This new timeline view allows you to look at the sequence of things and really understand how that user's behavior has changed over time and how our dynamic DLP policies are changing over time to adjust that risk profile. So let's see what this looks like from the user's perspective. Here we have a user on their endpoint. They have 2 specific files that they want to send out via their personal email account. The first file is an innocuous file related to their favorite cars. So they transfer that to the drafts folder and they're able to effectively send that attachment to the drafts folder. They can then access that outside the corporate network. The second file appears to be quite similar, but they're blocked. Now, why are they essentially prevented from transferring this file? On closer inspection, we see that this file is different. This file contains sensitive information related to a new AI drone project, Project Falcon. DTEX's risk-adaptive DLP has inspected the content and identified that sensitive information. So let's dive into the new policy pages and understand how that actually worked. Looking at the configuration page of our new DTEX risk-adaptive framework, we can see that there are different policies for different users. This user started in risk group 1, the low risk user risk group. We can see that in risk group 1, we've set personal webmail to disrupt if sensitive. And there's two really important methods for determining whether something is sensitive or not. First, there's content inspection. We can integrate with third-party data classification tools like Microsoft Purview. We can inspect content ourselves now for looking at PII, PHI, and PCI information. And we can also look for things like regular expressions or content within the file, in this case, Project Falcon. Now, an exciting new method which DTEX just received the patent from last month is called behavioral-based data classification. This is a really novel approach for information that doesn't typically fit a mold. You cannot inspect the content for regular expressions or crown jewels keywords, things like images, video files, source code. This is where this inferred sensitivity algorithm really comes into its own. This looks at different heuristics like who touched it, how much work has gone into a file, and the full data lineage of a given file. We risk score that lineage and we infer the sensitivity. So, for example, brains trust users, individuals that have a higher propensity to touch sensitive information. You can then use that inferred sensitivity to enforce DLP controls. Okay, let's look at the user's point of view. When we know we have a malicious user, we know they're not going to stop just because we stop them transferring that sensitive file to their Gmail account. They're going to continue that research. So right on cue, this user opens up ChatGPT and he's starting to perform reconnaissance on how to get around those DLP controls. Now, ChatGPT and other LLMs have guardrails inbuilt to prevent users from doing things maliciously. But a smart user, just as this one, can get around those guardrails quickly. By tweaking their prompt, they're able to get the information they need. ChatGPT then produces all of the information they need to get around those DLP controls. This research leads them to a really powerful encryption tool called Vericrypt. They search for that file, they download the file, and they essentially embed that sensitive information within an image. Now, DTEX's risk adaptive DLP has been looking at those research attempts. It's been looking at the download of those tools, and it's been slowly moving this user into a higher risk group where more controls are being enforced. They no longer can upload that image file to their personal Gmail account. And it's not just Gmail. They've also been prevented from accessing the USB drive. Even as they go into ChatGPT to perform more research, they're now restricted from using that unapproved generative AI application. This is proactive risk adaptive DLP. DTEX's risk adaptive framework allows the policy to be tailored to your organization's DLP strategy. It's no longer thousands and thousands of policy rules. It allows you to adapt that policy and treating DLP as a strategy across the entire organization. Through investigation, we now automatically summarize what the user was doing and when. Even the research attempts into using generative AI to get around DLP controls are being captured. As we dive in from the analyst view and investigate the user, we've created these automatic AI summaries of what information was interesting. We've captured the information about their reconnaissance attempts using ChatGPT. For risky prompts, we're inspecting what did they enter into ChatGPT and what was the response. This is incredibly helpful for understanding generative AI data loss as well. Now, if an analyst doesn't want to manually work through this, we also provide a fully automated AI-driven investigation workflow. We call these on-demand agentic workflows. An individual can start an investigation on a specific individual and all of their DLP egress mediums, but pivoting around how they were using information. What were they accessing? What was the time of the day? What happened in the events leading up to an incident? This is where the LLM is extremely powerful. These on-demand agentic workflows that allow an analyst to automatically go through all of the investigation stages and have the LLM summarize what was going on, what happened during the upload of that Gmail account, what happened before the reconnaissance attempt, all the way down to an executive summary, which really creates that last mile for an analyst to be able to escalate that to the fraud or investigations team or up to legal. The LLM summarizes it perfectly. It provides that last mile of analysis for our insider threat teams to be able to quickly escalate this to the authorities.